for the trip to Costa Rica. Oh wait, yeah,
Ooh.
that's not a trip to Costa Rica.
Saw that last night.
Yeah.
For April of 27.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Zoe. Hello, I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting of the Madison Board of Education to order. It is 6 o'clock. And we have a brief but packed agenda. We're going to discuss the 24-25 budget closeout. And then we'll move on to the 26-27 budget with some preliminary views and numbers. And as usual, I'll probably turn it over to Dr. Cook and our Director of Finance, Stacy Novitz. Stacy, I know we just closed the books right on the year.
We did, just yesterday, we got our final audit finished, issued. We ended, the Board of Ed, had a balance of $382,727. So that was our underspent budget for the fiscal year ending 25.
And do we have plans for allocating that, or is that just all
Yes.
gets rolled into next year's budget?
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations, Stacy, on a successful audit. That's a big process that requires a lot of your time. I know it helps that we have a former auditor / CPA as our finance director, so that so you kind of know the process. So but that's always great, without major recommendations. So that's good. As we've been talking about really since I think it was May timeframe, May or June timeframe, when we realized we did not have enough money for an approved CIP project, which is the baseball field at in Olean. It's our high school field. It's right behind Polson. That needs renovation pretty severely. It's we've had to shut it down for teams other than the high school before, and had to not hold games because it rained while softball's able to play because they have a turf field. So we are looking to move that approved project forward. We bid the baseball field and the softball field together. We're not successful. The bids came in higher than our money allotted for both projects. It's a great example of us working with the town. The town handles the softball field. So the projects were split. The softball field was bid and it has been completed, so and under budget. And so we did not go back out to the baseball field knowing we did not have enough money for that. So in the previous CIP plan, we had $1,511,192 approved for the baseball field. We wanted to indicate, because we had this money, this carryover money is typically allotted for a project. And so as the board's aware, we have tons of projects going on. We did not have other things, really anything else that our facilities department could take on to do over the summer. So we wanted to put this towards an already approved project, being the baseball field. And so as Stacy shared, there's $382,727 remaining from the budget. We would like to put that towards the CIP to offset the cost of the baseball field. We've been talking about that. Like I said, May and June, the board was in support of that. What we would need to do is craft a letter to First Selectwoman Lyons and Board of Finance Chair John Picard, and indicate to them that this is our plan. This process has already been approved, so it's not that we're seeking their approval, but that was our agreement with them. And certainly this is something that they would support, because it's gone through in the CIP already, and this is used as offset money. So when you see the funds that we're asking for the baseball field, which is a big number, it's $1.6 million. That is, we're asking for the baseball field. It is offset by that $382,000. And again, I apologize. We normally would have paper for you, but the audit was just approved, so we did not have time to put it with the agenda for Friday that went out Friday. But we do have that funding. We are conservative with the money. I feel like we were asking for the baseball field. And the thought process on that is that we never would want to try and have to go out a third time. So, I think that we would have funds to comfortably do the project, and then as we did with the softball field, turn it back to the town. I think that, those two numbers combined would certainly have money available for that baseball field. We've talked to contractors and, we have that initial bid, so, we feel we're in good shape. We don't have that on the agenda tonight, but it could be an agenda item added, or if you prefer, we can wait till January. I just know that first meeting in January, we have a pretty packed agenda. So it might be worthwhile to add that. If you want to do that, Zoe and I can give you the wish to add that. I'll leave that up to the finance committee to.
We could make a recommendation and vote on it for tonight, right? Okay.
Yeah, in fact, if you wanna move to vote on it now as a committee, then you can.
Right. Is there anything else of note with the closeout that we should cover? Other than kudos? Okay, all right, thank
I
you.
just always like to point out, so $382,000 sounds like it is a lot of money. I mean, it is it's 0.5% of our budget, so we're landing on, 0.5%. Sometimes we're uncomfortable, like we're kind of working through at the end of the year, watching accounts closely that are over our budget. Now certainly there's accounts under our budget, and we work hard to track those. The board receives those reports monthly, and we work very closely with that. But we have some volatile accounts. We have a special ed account that we don't get bills in till late. We have electrical, natural gas that comes in after June 30th. So there's a real challenge there. But certainly we would never want to end in a negative, and so we were always making sure that we're going to have some positive variance to end the year on. And this new process that allows us to carry over and spend it thoughtfully with one of our goals is really helpful. So that's a relatively new state law. Great.
Yeah.
Hey, could I have a
Good
vote?
job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Could I have a motion to allocate the $382,000 carryover? Make a recommendation to the full board to allocate the $382,000 carryover to the CIP for the purposes of the baseball field. Second, all right. Any discussion?
Sounds good.
All in favor?
I,
Aye, motion passes 3-0. Thank you. And then you can pull your Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, we could vote, we could vote to add an agenda item.
Great. Okay, moving right along to next year's budget, 2026-27 budget. Dr. Cook, do you want to introduce that?
Sure,
Anything
yes,
that's coming
so that was all our good news for the night. Now we move on to now we move on to 26-27. So with a 4-year teacher's contract settled a year and a half ago, we had some predictability in our salary account, a decent amount of predictability in our salary account. Most of our contracts are 3 years. We have a lot of other areas that are predictable. Our most difficult to predict for our district, other districts, I think special ed can be right up there, but we've been pretty solid in terms of our special ed and outplacement costs, is health insurance. And so each year we take a pretty early run in that because the board's budget has to be submitted so early. So when you think about this, we're asking for an insurance rate that is July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2027. And so we're self-insured. And so what we get from our consultant in Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield is a recommended amount that we're putting into that fund to cover insurance claims that will end in June of 27. So pretty hefty task to go through, and it's pretty far projections that we're utilizing, and we're dealing now with rates that went up through October. So we know where our experience is in October, and as you all know from insurance, a doctor's visit at the beginning of, say November 1st might not be billed and processed and everything till January, February. It oftentimes takes up to 3 months before we're dealing with that cost, so we're always lagging a little bit. But we've had very poor experience in our rates, meaning the amount of money that we're paying out for claims that our employees are accessing doctors has been higher than we've seen, and also the cost of insurance went up 8.4%. So if we had no change in experience, our rate would be an 8.4% increase. In comparison, I think last year we ended up about a 2% increase. So we're looking at a pretty significant change. We've worked already to mitigate some of that by getting more experience from our first run was really high, but we're looking at about a 22% right now increase in health insurance, which is pretty difficult for our budgeting structure to handle. So we're doing a lot of work in that area. We have another meeting scheduled in early January to get an update about mid-January, excuse me, to get an update from our consultant. We'll get a update later this month where November kind of looked at, but 1 month alone doesn't typically swing it that much, but 2 months could potentially give us some positive news to deal with. So we're looking to receive that in January. So this could be half of our budget request for increase or more, depending on where things land. It was about 3% of our budget just for insurance. So and in comparison, that on most years, 3% would kind of be what our budget would increase has been. We've been below state average for several years, and been I think very mindful and trying to fit into a budget plan, knowing that we had tax increases coming on due to a new building and other construction. So we've been very mindful of that, but this is difficult news to deal with. I will say too, the town received the same, we're in a pool with the town, so the town staff, employees, departments are dealing with the same challenges as we are in terms of the percentage. So it's not just the board. So this kind of connects with something I included in my Friday update to the board. We were looking at giving the board their our proposed budget January 6th. It will give us a little bit more time. The last thing I want to do is signal any type of potential staff or position reductions prior to knowing where we stand as best as possible with insurance. Sometimes you do have to do that and look at that, but as we're trying to come up with an administrative budget that's reasonable, I don't want to signal to our staff that we're having to make reductions more than we might need to. So there's a lot of challenges involved in that, and so we can have to January 6th to give you the electronic copy and then the paper copy that Friday. That would be I feel we can certainly print one out, but we get like to give you the binded version of that for folks if when we get that. So we would do that on Friday, and then we would present the budget that following Tuesday. It was
13th.
Thank you. So January 13th. We will know. Stacey, when is the meeting with the consultant? Is that the 19th?
It's a 12.
Good question.
Of course. Yeah.
Do retirees have access to health insurance, or it's just current employees and their dependents?
So they do. Connecticut state law for teachers is they can access the health plan of the district that they retire from. They pay the full cost of that till they're 65. So teachers, if a teacher retired at 60 years old, they would be able to pay for. They'd be able to stay on our insurance till 65, and they go to the state plan, but they pay the full cost of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask one other question? I don't know if you even know the answer to this, but do we have a sense of that increase? Is it driven by the cost of healthcare, or is it driven by the fact that our staff is
both.
unwell or, okay,
No, I wouldn't say unwell, but I think, so 8.4% was the cost of the increase, so the, doctor's visit going up. Roughly 8.4, so that's gonna cover the whole state, everybody, every district in the state. The other function of that is the claims we pay out since we're self-employed, or self-insured. So. For instance, one of the months, as they look at like a rolling experience rate chart. We're dropping off months that were $600,000 to $700,000 of claims. And adding months that are more recent at 1.1 million. So that fluctuation is the reason for this increase. We have stop loss, so if there's an individual case that goes over $250,000, that's covered under our stop loss plan, which is also, that insurance has gone up quite a bit, so that's a function of this too. But it's really been the claims we've had, just incredibly good claims in the past. Like last year we had our budget increase was for all health insurance was $125,000. This is looking closer to 2 million. So it's a huge swing that we are grappling.
Yeah, I took a look at the last 10 years and the average was about 4% per year. And it's been plus or minus 4%, so you typically be like anywhere between -4% to 8%. So I guess my concern is it's unpredictable to some extent. But we should probably budget for greater variation in the future. I don't think it's gonna be going down. I don't think we're gonna be as lucky as we have been the last 10 years.
So that's a great point. What we have done, and I think Madison has this budgetary forethought throughout, like all of our accounts or things like that. We do have a reserve fund that has policy that we have to have 25% of claims in it, and so we have reserves beyond that. So one of the discussions that we'll have is, is this a time to use some of those reserves? So we're having those discussions now and kind of see kind of the final number, but yeah, that's really what we've also had. So if you think about it, we've had low increases, but we've also been able to maintain that and add to that reserve fund. And so, that's similar to other things in the town that they're really well budgeted.
Right.
For.
I mean, again, not to repeat myself too often, but I think we've been below the rate of CPI for the last 10 years in terms of our budget year-on-year increases, which has been pretty remarkable. Certainly below the average for most, if not all, school districts, comparable school districts. But this,
And then I will add to, our employee groups pay typically in the highest range of any of employee groups in the state. So our teachers are about 24%. So quarter basically of any increases is bared by the staff. We've made plan design changes through negotiations that have helped offset that. So I think that's been a big piece of our positive experience rate too. We're in a high deductible HSA. So I think we've done a lot of the moves. In fact, that's our first question with the consultant, like what else can we do? I know the town side has some potential moves, but for us, they said we're kind of about where we should be in terms of those pieces. So they didn't really have a recommendation for us, nor do we have that opportunity to really look at making those changes outside of negotiations. We have to wait until we negotiate again, but
it is what it is.
Yeah. When we have had an abnormally high year for us, and this is higher than that. We've questioned, does it make sense to go with traditional insurance instead of the self-funded plan? But over time, we have been, benefited manyfold by continuing to self-insure. So you look at what's going on with health insurance on the market right now, quadruple, double, triple. So 22% increase is still, beating the market for the most part. Unless, Congress gets together and does something with the 12 days they have left in the year. which may not be likely, but, so just, I know you being new to the committee, we do have great consultants and, that this is an aberrational year, hopefully. And we can hopefully absorb some of the aberrational increase, with some reserves. We'll have to ask, our fellow boards about that, and, hopefully it doesn't happen next year as well.
Right. Kind of along those lines, so the other wild cards would be what, energy and special ed?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we're working on special ed. It's always hard to predict. Again, we're kind of predicting, where students are that could move into town that we don't know yet. And those costs are borne by us as well. But we've been really fortunate with special ed. We seem to be in a good place, with that account based on our projections. And then energy, we've been able to lock in our fuel costs or diesel fuel costs, excuse me, that's for transportation, that's another line, but we've been able to lock in some energy costs as well at least where we're at now or a little bit higher. So we're in a good place with that. We in a few days give back to 3 buildings to the town. And so we have maintained Ryerson, Jeffrey, and TCLC up till January 1. And that's in the budget. So that comes out of half a year of those 3 buildings comes out of the budget for next year. So we have some savings in those areas. And then, obviously some other places that we have some savings related to that. There was a right to read act purchase for last year that will need to be replaced. And so there's some savings as well. We really look through every account as we do every year. Yeah.
And are there when do we get word about Neck River and any potential data on usage there? Energy usage, yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting that now. I think the winter will give us,
Yeah.
different, there's different costs, certainly higher costs, but it seems to be trending, about where we thought. Some of the challenges are we don't have control over the thermostats for the first year, so that's been controlled by the Eversource. So we've got a different range that I would prefer. But I think that even with taking over control of that in September, we'll be in a good place. Solar would not be put in over the summer, so we can't anticipate any solar savings on Neck River at this point. That's still a project under review, and it will eventually happen. But that won't happen this summer, so that's track.
And when that does happen, it could save us, a couple $100,000 or more a year
significant
in energy costs, and it'll make the building net zero energy use.
Do we have any other questions on the cost side? And just want to open it up in case. Then if I could flip it to the other side of the table and just say, what are our priorities? What do we want to really keep given the challenging, the budget situation here?
Yeah, as we talked with the administrative team, we looked at several purchases that were priorities for us that would be geared towards more end of the year funds. And I think that's been the board's preference on things like a Mac lab for the middle school for music. So some really unique music courses that could utilize the Mac lab for the middle school. So that would be like move toward end of the year purchase, where I probably would have put that into the budget. I would have liked to look back at instructional coaches at the middle school or some other pieces, but I think it's a year where we're gonna just look to keep everything that we have as much as possible. I think that we've got a pretty good plan on how to accomplish that. you know, we knew we were gonna have to add some teaching staff to Neck River in fifth grade when we did this plan. But we have a smaller group going through Brown, so we, you know, find a teacher there. So there's kind of those types of moves that you'll see from us in the budget, and you know, we feel we're in a pretty good place, you know, to continue our success both on, you know, academics and social emotional support for students, and you know, intervention where needed as well.
Well, I just like to editorialize and say that, I mean, all the remarkable planning that you guys have done the last 5 years to fund things and also control costs. I think is gonna let us weather this.
Yeah, we're at a much smaller basis than we could have been if we had seen big year-over-year increases.
Well, are there any public comments at this stage? No, unsurprisingly. All right. So I guess that would wrap it up here. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So.
All right, second, all in favor? Aye, motion is 3-0, and it's 6:25.